Hello, good evening, and happy Friday. We are coming to you live with episode 9 of our weekly album discussion streams. That's right, almost at double figures. I'm Matt, and tonight I'm joined by Cam.
It's good, Matt. How's it going?
All good, all good. We've got some Brad with us here, too.
Yo, how's it going?
All good. Together we are Ballpark Music, and every week we pick an album that came out on a Friday, give ourselves a week with it, then come back together on a stream for an in-depth discussion. No scoring, no taste making, because music is not sports. If you like what you see, you can give us a follow on the socials, and we'll let you know when we're going live. Whew! What a week! What a week! Cam, I've got to kick off with a hard-hitting question for you this week. Are you ready?
Yeah, hit me.
How many times have you listened to Fortitude since last week?
3 times, Magma twice, for my whale posters out there, Elephant Sausage once, and from Mars to Sirius about 6 times.
Cool.
Lots of Gajira.
I did do Magma once, and was less impressed with it than I was Fortitude, but yeah, all good in the context, I think. Brad, how you doing?
Good, man. Glad it's Friday, as ever, and looking forward to the stream.
I'm sorry I caught you like just as you were going to vape there. That's my bad. That's poor vaping hosting etiquette.
I think Brad needs to practice his cowboy training, get quicker on the mute draw, man.
Yeah. I've got a fresh install on my PC, so everything's a bit figuring out my keybinds again. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, you've got your excuses. I've got mine as well. Last week I spent the beginning portion of the show talking about 3 people handing in their notice and leaving their job and doing a big tribute. And so of course today was actually my last day working my day job. And it's been all a bit full on. I guess really I'm just saying this as a prior warning ahead of next week's stream if I am totally dead. But anyway, that's all stuff for next week, Matt, to worry about. There are far more pressing matters, I think, for us to deal with right now, including this question. Gents, what are you drinking tonight?
I'll go first this week. I'm drinking this thing called Sour Solstice, right? And I'm a sucker for a fancy can.
Ooh.
And it's blood orange and cranberry sour, and I didn't really know what that meant. But really, I should have just been told by the title, because that's what it is. And it's really sour, and it's really hard to drink.
I do like a fancy can. I'm seeing a lot more of them of late. But I think the thing that always puts me off is the fact that, you get a big boy can, that works out for me. You get funny flavors in your beer, that works for me. But then it's just like, $5.
So something I'm not sure either of you two know about me is that I actually collect cans. I have a can collection.
I've seen some of your can collection now that I think about it. Yeah.
I have Simpsons cans. I have Pokemon cans. All sorts, really.
I thought that was just your recycling.
No, dude. I collect cans. I don't know why I like cans. They're cool.
The wave
My
of
antique can collection.
The wave of relief just coming over us as we realize, no, he's not an alcoholic. Those haven't been sitting there since, the night before. They've actually been there for a long time. No, that's cool, man. Yeah.
How big do you think I'd have a Pikachu on the can?
A good one.
Probably not a good one.
Probably not. Brad, what are you adding to the can collection tonight?
The fanciest beer that my local shop sells, which, as always, is Brewdog. It's about the pinnacle of their reach, I think, and fair enough.
It's a fancy brand, man. They're opening a garden in like a garden top bar or like a hotel or something in Vegas. I saw this week. So because Brewdog's marketing just permeates everything, so you find that out eventually. Like you, I'm sticking kind of safe this week. I've got another Heineken on. I meant to pick something up from our local brewery, but I didn't manage to get there before closing today. So next week, hopefully, I will have something a little more interesting there. Yeah, real quick one just off the top to say that there's some sad news this morning about Jack Terracloth, lead singer extraordinaire of World Inferno Friendship Society, who passed away at the all too young age of 50. I've seen articles today that describe World Inferno as one of the most unique punk bands of all time, and I really think that that's still selling them short. A friend introduced me to the band back when I was at uni, and like instantly hooked. Trying to describe their music will only do them a disservice. But if I just say that this is a punk band that melds the music of that genre with soul, jazz, horns, has a collective membership of about 40 players, you start to get an idea of what they were about. If you've never heard them before, put on Only Anarchists Are Pretty and just enjoy what a wonderful band they are. R.I.P. Jack.
Sounds like ska to me.
It's
No,
not.
It's one of those. I'd not come across the band before, but today I saw a lot of people I follow, such as Jeff Rosenstock, tweeting about it. So obviously had a massive influence on a lot of people that I'm massively influenced by. So it might be one to check out for me. Yeah, you're right. Sad news. 50 is no age.
Indeed. Yeah, wholeheartedly recommend it to you and anybody else. So yeah, Cam. Before we get into this week's album discussion, you had an idea you wanted us to discuss, and we briefly teased last week's stream before pulling back on it. Are we all prepped and ready to go this time around?
Speak for Brad, but I think I'm just about ready. Do you want me to introduce it? Introduce it? Should I go? Should I learn to speak first?
Please do.
Yeah. So it's basically, what classic album do you wish was coming out this week that we could review on stream next week? Obviously you have the hindsight of knowing what the album sounds like, which you wouldn't do, but yeah, which classic album would you go for?
Well, I'll kick off here and say, part of me wants to say, never mind the bollocks, here's the Sex Pistols, simply so I could sit down on a stream and read the entirety of my dissertation front to back, but I get the feeling that probably wouldn't be fun for anyone. Yeah, there's a lot of different candidates I could go for. Like, there's the obvious answers along the lines of, some of my favorite albums of all time, like American Idiot. Part of me wanted to say Pinkerton tonight to just trigger you guys ahead of our discussion later on. But really thinking about it, it's interesting that you said about, the music. One of the things that I enjoy the most about this discussion series is that 98% of the music that we are talking about, we are coming to fresh, right? Aside from a couple singles here or there, we're often diving into a relative unknown. So I would probably actually want to pick something that I've missed along the line to dive into. And there are a bunch of classic albums for me to catch up on, way too many to list. But I think the one that sticks out for me probably the most at the minute is Super Unknown by Soundgarden. I did actually catch up on a bunch of Chris Cornell's music over the last year. And, I of course know Black Hole Sun. I know Spoon Man. But I've never listened to that whole album front to back. So I think being able to sit down for a week, then hop on a stream to discuss it really appeals to me.
Great shout. Again, another. I know the singles like you, but I've never really dove into Soundgarden's full discography. Maybe that's one to go back over, to be fair, because classic band, classic vocalist. I think I've listened to more Audio Slave than I have Soundgarden from Chris Cornell. So yeah, no, great choice. Great choice. What about you, Brad? Should I go next? So you give more time to think.
Yeah, if you go, then I'll have figured out how to unmute myself by then.
Well, I just spent 5 minutes muting and unmuting myself constantly without doing it the right way around. So yeah, no, go
Cool.
ahead.
So I've gone a little bit further back in time, I think, than Matt. Again, kind of tempted to go with a grunge influence, having written various essays on various grunge bands throughout my degree. But I've kind of gone for a slightly off the wall one. And it was kind of between two albums, really, both by the same artist, Miles Davis. First one being Kind of Blue, which is like a classic album. It's like listed as probably one of the best-selling jazz albums of all time. And the second one, I think, is slightly more interesting. I think we'd have a slightly better discussion around it, and that's Bitches Brew. This is an album he brought out kind of beginning of the 70s, and it really kind of catapulted jazz back to a kind of mainstream audience in the 70s. And it also kicks off like a lot of the more experimental kind of side that he's known for. It kind of kicked off a whole wave of jazz rock fusion and things like that. And I think it'd be really interesting to A, get your opinions on it as it is, and B, kind of get your opinions on how it's probably influenced a lot of the stuff we listen to today, especially some of the more abstract things.
Great choice, and another one that I haven't actually ever delved into much of the back catalogue of. There was an alarming crash from downstairs just there. Miles Davis one I really definitely should check out. I'm a big jazz fan myself, Brad. So yeah, that's another great shout. Maybe we should do a classic album review.
I'm pleased by the amount of these that are coming up, and it's just like, hey, actually, no, I haven't either. And yeah, I was thinking the same thing. There might be a series in this.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Right, I'll go then. I was going to go down the same route as you, Matt, initially, and drink for everyone watching. The first album that obviously came to my mind was Siamese Dream by the Smashing Pumpkins, because it's my favorite album of all time. I could spend 3, 4, 5 hours maybe just talking about the guitar tone on that album alone. But then I thought about it a bit deeper and decided to do something more interesting. And I went with an album where I can remember the very first time I heard the very first single from it. Or sorry, the very first time I heard the first song I'd ever heard from it, not the first single, because I heard it way after it came out. And that is David Comes to Life by a band called Fucked Up. I vividly remember sitting on a coach with a good friend of mine on the way to Glasgow, on the way to see a Paramore show of all things. Big fan. And I can't remember why, but I think my headphones had broken, so we were doing the classic back of the school bus, one ear each.
And you were how old?
26. This wasn't that long ago. Maybe 25. I can't remember.
I knew this. I just wanted to make sure we had the context here for that. So, everybody else coming onto the bus on the way up to Glasgow. All right.
It was a long coach from London to Glasgow, so we were also probably not wearing any shoes and also eating sandwiches at the same time on the back of this. It wasn't a pleasant journey. But anyway, he hands me this headphone, and the first song he's playing is The Other Shoe. And it has this kind of quite repetitive intro. I'm like, I'm like, amazing. And then it's just got this vocal comes in. It's dying on the inside. I was immediately hooked. I'll never forget listening to that song for the first time, and I loved the way that made me feel. And I've subsequently listened to the album so many times. It's got the perfect blend of rough around the edges with kind of mainstream appeal. It's got an incredible story, which I'm not even going to attempt to really go into the depth of it, but it's all about England in the 80s and the 70s, and there's plot devices, there's narrators, and David's obviously one of the characters, Veronica's another. It's as close to me as a perfect album as you can get, and it's by this small Canadian hardcore band. And it's amazing. And I saw them live in Barcelona, and quite honestly, it's one of the best shows I've ever been to. So yeah, that great album, and I would love to spend 2 hours with you guys talking about it.
Hello, your name is David. My name is Veronica. Love that album so much. You mentioned this, and as soon as you said it, it was like, fuck you. You you definitely picked the best one. I don't even know what I'm gonna pick yet. I don't know what Brad's gonna pick, but yeah, that would lend itself to a very good discussion, I think, because as you say, there is so much there in terms of the story, the music, all of that stuff. Fucked up, great band. Not the first time I think that they've come up on one of our streams, but I think last time I
No,
was
because
referencing his regular appearances on Fox News.
they're also big haters of Spotify, so that just lends them into my good books immediately. They are quite often tweeting about how much they hate Spotify. So there we go.
I think that's really good. Well, here's hoping that we all get a chance to sit down and talk some Miles Davis, Soundgarden, and Fucked Up sometime soon, because I think that would be great. Evening Dreadlocks, good to see you in the chat again. It says Cam, Ka has perfect albums, and you know this.
He's not wrong. He's not wrong.
He's not wrong.
I can't find a flaw in a Ka album, and that would be another one I would love to go back and do, like Honor Killed the Samurai or something like that. But I could only pick one. Maybe next week I'll pick another one.
Well, there we go, folks. If you want to join us in chat tonight, why don't you hop in and let us know, what your ideal album to sit down and, have a 2-hour discussion with 3 of your friends would be. That would be great to hear. But we are going to dig into this week's album discussion. And this week, we have got Weezer's latest released Van Weezer up at the plate. It's appearing right there on screen because I forgot to hide it before I started the stream. But anyway, that's right. The coin flip has spoken, and we're sticking to it. Here is a bit of press to whet your appetite. Weezer's homage to metal, Van Weezer, is finally on the way, due out May 7th, i.e. last week, via Crush Music Atlantic Records. The renowned rockers shared the single I Need Some of That to herald the album's release. Weezer initially planned to release Van Weezer in May 2020, but the record was delayed a year due to the pandemic. In the interim, Weezer put out OK Human, the quartet's first ever orchestral album. But the band has previewed Van Weezer, produced by Susie Shin, who's worked with Panic at the Disco and Fall Out Boy in the past, with a number of tracks including 2019's End of the Game and 2020's Hero, a tribute to frontline workers, and Beginning of the End. The band also contributed Van Weezer's song Blue Dream to an episode of The Simpsons last year. Van Weezer, the band's 15th studio album, sees Weezer getting back to their metal roots as all 4 members are longtime fans of the genre. Quote, Rivers was a huge Kiss fan, Brian was a big Black Sabbath fan, Pat worshipped at the altar of Van Halen and Rush, and Scott loved Slayer and Metallica, end quote. I have been looking forward to this album since it was first announced. Cam, I know that you've got a pretty divergent opinion on this than I do. So, Brad, I want to start with you. Were you aware that Weezer were releasing an album where they revisit their love of Kiss, Sabbath, Van Halen, and Slayer?
I don't think, to be honest, I've been aware of Weezer releasing an album since the Green album. That's probably where my Weezer knowledge kind of is born and dies. So I was not expecting them to release a metal homage album. I originally thought this was kind of going to be a Teal album situation where it was just going to be like a bunch of covers. There's certainly elements of that, but it does go a bit beyond that. I think it's a slightly different beast.
I think just before I jump to you, Cam, I mean, Brad, maybe a little more generally, where does Weezer's back catalog kind of sit with you and your interests?
They're a kind of classic band, aren't they? I think, and they've always been songs of theirs like on playlists of mine and in my rotation. I think. Never really delved deeper than the kind of the big known tracks, though.
Cool. All right, Cam, come on, lay it on me. Tell me your feelings about Weezer more generally and what you thought when you first heard about Van Weezer.
I love Weezer. Make no bones about that. Blue Album and Pinkerton are two of the greatest albums ever released, and they're by the same band, which is unreal. I like snippets of the rest of their catalog. There's elements of Make Believe I Don't Hate. There's elements of the Red album that I really, really like. There's the album they did that had Back to the Shack on that I can't remember the name of. That's really good. My issue with modern Weezer is they over-release and underwrite pretty much everything. So it's kind of a ratio of it's the Star Wars ratio. There's more bad Weezer albums now than there are good ones, which is a shame.
Dreadlocks hops in to ask, you mean to tell me Weezer didn't make Teenage Dirtbag? One of my favorite moments at a concert, full stop, was when I was at Reading Festival. It was the first time I'd been, and Weezer were playing, and they actually covered Teenage Dirtbag at that show. And there were so many people going, "This is my favorite Weezer song," like fully, like, not messing around, not making that joke that everybody does make. They fully believe that. I love that, and it was a great cover. But yeah, I mean,
To know that Dreadlocks wasn't joking and actually did think that was a Weezer song until he got corrected. It's not. I think it's more than just a joke at this point. I think people actually do think they wrote that.
No doubt. Yeah, on my end, and probably to no one's surprise, yeah, I am a huge Weezer fan. I alluded to it earlier, but like you, Cam, Pinkerton is one of my favorite albums of all time. It'll make its way onto my headphones once every couple of months as a minimum, right? And Rivers ranks up there among my top musical inspirations, full stop. I think where we differ is you can probably also quite easily describe me as a Weezer apologist as well. As much as I love the really awkward, heartfelt, geeky rock that permeated the indisputable classics that you've already talked about there, Pinkerton and the Blue Album, I tend to be able to find a lot of things and maybe a few more. So maybe, not too different. I don't know. Probably enjoy is a better way to describe it more than like. But I find a lot of that on their newer albums, which, as you say, they tend to be a little more polarizing. White Album, for example, really enjoy that. There's a lot of stuff about the Black Album that I really don't hate. And Cam, we went to Brixton a few years back to see Weezer on their tour supporting the release of that album. Found it utterly hilarious at the time that their 2-hour set on a tour supporting that album's release didn't contain a single song from the album that had just come out like a couple of months before. And I wasn't complaining because, I heard all the classics that I wanted to hear, right? Like
100%, and that's what a Weezer show is at this point. There is nothing that Weezer have released in the last 10 years. I mean, we don't know about Van Weezer yet. We'll think about it, but there's nothing Weezer have released in the last 10 years that would make it to a live show or a live set.
One quick thing to say. I mean, there was a song from the White Album that ended up being played at that show, and it was the right one as well, and it was one that I really wanted to hear. But that show also contained the most sublime mid-song switch from their cover of Happy Together into Green Day's Longview, and then back to Happy Together. That shit was fucking wild, man. Yeah, so, when they announced Van Weezer in the same press release revealing that they were playing as part of my dream tour, I was pumped. They're a band that revels in being frivolous, and as far as I can tell, don't take themselves too seriously. And that's where so much joy, I think, in their music comes from for me. So, yeah, not approaching it in the same way that we approached Fortitude last week. But, man, yeah, really looking forward to this one. So, what do we say? Let's get into the track by track, and we get underway with Hero here, a single that was released exactly a year and a day before the release of the album. I know it's obviously been a weird year, but that is a kind of crazy fact. The PR mentioned about this song being a tribute to COVID-19 frontline workers. The video and some of the quotes that they have in their press releases all pay tribute. But I guess if we're going to mention Gojira backing their shit up on last week's stream, I should say I couldn't find anything saying that the band were donating a cut anywhere when I did a quick bit of research. But that fact aside, Brad, do you want to kick us off musically? Talk to us about Hero?
Yeah, sure. So like I said, my initial kind of impression, or what I thought I was getting into here, was going to be a Teal album situation. You know, we're going to have like these covers, these Weezer covers of classic metal songs. This is probably one of the ones that's like least referential to other artists that they know and love, at least ones that I know. And they've kind of gone from like OK Human, which is very deliberately not a guitar based album, to immediately lots and lots of guitar. You know, you're straight in with the intro. You've got like big power chords, you've got lead guitar lines, you've got synth lines. It is that kind of like, it's that 80s kind of rock aesthetic, but with a kind of modern production value, I think. And obviously a huge sound. You go from that like major pentatonic lick, again, like another like homage to the 80s there, and you kind of dropped into this, what I would kind of classify as standard Weezer fare for the verse. You get a very strong feeling this is going to be like Weezer's kind of, it feels like kind of their comfort zone in writing wise. You've got like, it's a power pop kind of formula that's going on. You've got lots of loud, soft, loud, and it's a good aesthetic and it works for them. Choruses throughout this get bigger as they go through. There's lots of like kind of build up, all emphasizing on the chorus. And they're great hook writers, they're great chorus writers. I think that's been proven time and time and again. And yeah, this kind of leads you into that nicely.
Yeah, you know, it's really interesting, isn't it, when you get off. The thing that struck me was that, you know, it's pretty clear for all of the hard rock and classic rock references that we've had in the promo for this album. At the core of it, it's still going to be a Weezer album, right? Some of those elements, as you say, are certainly in there, and you know, absolutely some heavier guitars than you're used to for a Weezer album. Odd bit of solo for good measure. But like you say, Brad, it's immediately recognizable as a Weezer song. Melodies are upbeat and poppy. Rivers comes in with, you know, some pretty on the nose lyrics that have been trademark of late, referencing superheroes from Spider-Man to Batman to Cyclops or Superman. I wasn't sure who was shooting lasers. But yeah, I tell you what, in terms of like bands that I actually pick out of this, I maybe pick up a little more Green Day of anything, you know, rather than anything else on that track. But I think that's really just because the chorus contains a "I walk alone, I walk alone, I walk alone." Like it's their take on Boulevard of Broken Dreams. Briefly, it's very strange.
It was a pretty obvious reference, wasn't it? No, I mean, to me straight away, it gives me huge Van Halen vibes. That's no surprise because obviously the album's called Van Weezer. You know, you've got that. Brad, you can remind me whether it's some tapping or legato at the beginning, something along those lines with the guitar, where it's that kind of Van Halen pioneered or made famous, that kind of sort of style of guitar. And even the chorus, the verse, sorry, where it gets a bit more power pop and it's got that choppy kind of chord progression. Very Van Halen. If you think about something like Jump, it could almost be that kind of thing. So, I mean, they're not hiding who they're influenced by on this album at all, in any way, with the title or with the intro to this song. But the thing that kind of struck me is it's the same Weezer songs I've heard before. It's completely recycled. The melodies have all been on previous albums before. Practically the lyrical content has, and the song structure is definitely. So it's you know, classic Weezer, or you know, recycled Weezer with a tiny bit of 40-year-old shred thrown in with it. The thing that really confuses me about this song is lyrically. Um, I just feel like he got stuck in the middle of a few ideas, or whether he's tried to retcon this song to a few ideas. You mentioned before he was dedicating it to the heroes of the pandemic. I'm 99% sure this album was written before the whole thing even happened, because this was announced around the same time as the Hella Mega Tour, and that
September
was way before
25th.
COVID.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't like that at all. To be honest with you, I find that kind of weird. And straight away I'm into this kind of vibe of, this is a 50-year-old guy kind of still writing lyrics like this, and it's a bit weird for me. I find it quite odd at this point. I'm not saying he needs to completely get away from that, but when he was writing Pinkerton and he's writing these sort of lyrics, you know, he's a young guy, you can kind of forgive it. But when you're a 50-year-old guy, it just comes across a little strange to me. um that was my main takeaway from Hero. There wasn't really that much else to take away from it.
You're not gonna have fun, I think, if you're having that now. Uh-oh.
I was
Sorry,
gonna say,
go
I was just gonna add to that. There's nothing really in it that like kind of points towards the pandemic to me. It sounds like, in a way, they've kind of gone, we're dedicating it to these people because it's called Hero. And that's about like as deep as that gets, really.
They're all superheroes, and it's a song about superheroes.
But it's clearly stuff Rivers has talked about before. You know, his nerdiness, his kind of not fitting in when he was a kid, and to do that, to kind of say that, leaves me with a bit of a, no pun intended, but sour taste in my mouth.
There you go. Thank you for gesturing towards the beer when you did that. That was very helpful. Um, I mean, look, you know, aside from that, it still ends up being a solid song for me. I do remember not particularly enjoying it when I heard it last year when they released it as a single around May time, but it's grown on me, and I think it fits well as an intro into this album for, you know, a lot of the reasons you've talked about there. It's like, it's Weezer, but also it's Van Halen in some of the window dressing there. I think you made a really good point as well, and I didn't want to gloss over it, that, you know, when people talk about Van Halen, right, you know, everybody's mind goes to like, oh, Van Halen shredding, yeah, heavy, things like that. But, you know, a lot of their back catalog is, you know, like just very poppy, right? You know, and or you would consider it pop now, or if you were to put headphones on and just listen to it blind or something like that, you'd be like, yeah, pop music.
Yeah, I mean, Eddie Van Halen's one of the greatest shredders of all time.
Yeah.
You know, influenced millions of guitar players around the world. But at the same time, they still released songs that you hear on Heart FM if you listen to that station daily, sort of thing. So, you know, there's that kind of duality to it. I will say, I don't dislike this song. It's fun and it's catchy in a lot of ways, but a theme of this album for me, and a theme of Weezer of late, is going to be laziness. And it just feels like a very, very lazy, by the numbers kind of modern pop hit.
I can draw one more line of comparison between this and Heart Radio, if you would like. Daniel Bedingfield gets a writing credit on this song. That is Natasha Bedingfield's brother. And
I
also,
remember who he is.
a musician in his own right. But yeah, he worked with Weezer on, I think, just this song on this record. But yeah.
Throwback.
Indeed, indeed. So, right, track 2, all the good ones. Cam, why don't you get us going here?
Same template, allusion to a metal song from the 80s, bad verse, catchy chorus. And it's really what this album is all about. Was Rivers attempting to rap here? I'm gonna throw this out. Was he trying to do a kind of rap here? I'm not really here for it. If he was, it felt like that, but it felt quite cringeworthy. And the lyrics as well, again, to go along with it, felt quite cringeworthy as well. They come across as bad teenage poetry. You know, I met her buying iced tea at the corner mini mart. She was thirsty. I was hungry for a start with somebody who wouldn't break my heart. Is something, you know, a 16-year-old would write, and you tell them, keep going, don't stop writing. Maybe it'd be fun if this was the first time I'd ever heard Rivers do this, but it's just not at this point. It's the same thing over and over again, and it becomes really tiresome. But again, I can't say it's a bad song because that chorus slaps. The chorus always slaps in a Weezer song. Like Brad said, they're incredible hook writers. I just wish the rest of the song had a little bit more craft behind it.
Yeah, I mean, it kicks you off with like the kind of, you got some dive bombs going on again, like those references back to 80s metal, but like straight off the bat, could you not instantly hear this and like be like, yep, this is Weezer. This is kind of like what they're about, you know? Um, again, like the choruses, like you said, Cameron, they are great. Like they work really well, all parts of it. Like always great backing vocals. In this one particularly, like some great lead lines harmonizing with the choruses. But yeah, the verse is like it's classic Weezer. It's classic Weezer all over. Like even production wise, you've got like his super dry vocal. Like that's been a kind of staple for them, and I guess it's a formula that works for them. And yeah, it's great hooks. But it's nothing. It's just instantly recognizable, and I don't think this song is something that would come on in your playlist and like kind of pique your attention. I think you would just kind of let it wash over you and be like, that was a Weezer song that just happened to me.
Yeah, like you say, it's more Weezer doing Weezer, just with a little more whipped cream on the cherry pie. I've written down actually, Brad, that you could take this song and you could chuck it onto like the White Album, and you wouldn't bat an eyelid about it being on there, I think. And it's interesting. I think you say about that rap kind of thing. I don't think he's trying to rap. Rivers has tried this little bit of like flow out in a few places. It was very prevalent on the Black album, but I will say I hope he's not trying to rap in the. It's not like Billy Joe Nightlife, right?
It's not that bad.
No.
Nothing's that bad.
What was that one song where it was the Weezer sample, and it was huge for about like
Oh,
5
Asheroth.
weeks? Yeah,
Yeah.
God.
No, I love College. Yeah, I remember that because I had to say it ain't so sampled, didn't it?
Yeah, let's never
Yeah.
go back to those days.
He did a song with Timbaland as well, didn't he? I'm sure he did.
Who? What? Rivers Cuomo or
Yeah.
Asheroth? I think he mentions Timbaland
He
in
does,
Pork and
but didn't he
Beans.
do a? I'm sure he did actually do, because it was right around the same time as Haley Williams was on a song around then. I
That
can't
was
remember if it was Timbaland.
B.O.B. wasn't
B.O.B.
it?
Maybe he
Yeah.
did one with B.O.B. then. 'Cause it was right around the same time as that, and I always felt like it was like the Haley Williams one wasn't there, then everybody would be singing the Weezer one. But anyway,
That's not true.
No.
Paramore still released good albums, man.
I disagree. But anyway, we're not talking about that tonight. We're
Another
talking
day.
about Van Weezer. We're talking about all the good ones, and yeah, it's amped up a touch in places. They're drawing probably more on bands like Queen than some of the ones that are mentioned in the press releases, like Sabbath, Slayer, or Metallica. That boom boom bap really gives it away. But yeah, I still feel like it's one of the joys I have about this album. Like there's a few places where the overall theme of the album feels like it's crowbarred in a little bit. But usually you don't have like a double neck guitar wrapped around your head going like, we're doing a metal album here, right? You can sit back and appreciate those melodies. You can appreciate those choruses. Rivers' voice and songwriting chops, you've both mentioned them there. They have been sporadically employed, I think, over the last 29 years, but they're on show here. Yeah. Shout out to that "yeah" at the end of the track, by the way. Every single time it reminds me of the Making Dennis Reynolds a Murderer episode of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Like, the one where they have Charlie on the phone doing his best Brandon Dassey impression. Are you watching wrestling, Charlie? Yeah.
I've watched Always Sunny in Philadelphia through about 6 times, and I think there's only 5 episodes I can actually recollect, and I love that show so much. It's one of those. Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying. It's fun. It's it's easy to listen to. There wasn't any point where I was like, oh, I don't want to listen to it. Well, there was, but there wasn't any point where I was seriously like, I can't listen to this anymore. It's that bad. But knowing what they can do and knowing what Rivers achieved with the Blue Album and how revolutionary that was at the time it came out, and what he followed that up with, an albeit a critically panned album in Pinkerton at the time that's become a cult classic and a fan favorite ever since. Knowing the levels they can reach, do you just not find this a little disappointing overall?
I mean, not really, no, because I don't think there are a great deal of bands that release, like as you said off the top, two best of all time albums at the beginning of their career and go on to have a 29-year long career at this point and are still releasing good music at the end of it, or at that 29-year point. It's a very, very small sample set there. And whereas I'll come on to mention it on the next track, whereas Father of All has turned me off Green Day completely, um I still enjoy sitting down and listening to OK Computer, the White Album, Black Album, and tracks on this album as well.
I think more my point is that you can tell they've still got that potential within them with how good the choruses are. Um, and it feels like they still could write that another classic to go in the discography. Um, Whereas with Green Day, it's kind of harder to see. Father of All, there wasn't really any redeeming features. The last one had potential before that, but again, it wasn't. I've completely forgotten about almost every track off that album. Whereas Weezer consistently show glimpses and do in these first two songs of how good they can write, and how good a songwriters they can be. But there's just parts that always feel phoned in.
I see that.
I think part of it as well is kind of like their attitude of not taking themselves too seriously. And, if Weezer came out with a really deep, kind of thought provoking album, all the fans would be like, like now at this point, I think it would just take me by surprise. This feels like a Weezer album that Weezer wanted to make. And, they've been waiting a long time to wait. If you think about kind of when Van Halen was active and when Weezer first started releasing music, there wasn't like that much differentiation. Like it wasn't that long between them. Like what they Weezer started kicking around, what, 94, something like that. Van Halen.
92, I think. Yeah,
Yeah.
they are older than we are.
Well, Van Halen like started in 74, but was still kicking around way into like 84. If they'd attempted anything like this then, it would have just been lumped in with like that. This is a Weezer album I feel that Weezer wanted to write for a while, and this is like kind of their best chance they've got to write it with.
Yeah, maybe you're right, because obviously if they tried to write it in '94, it would have got swept away by Nirvana, and
Yeah.
so possibly. I don't doubt that. I will disagree slightly on your if Weezer took themselves seriously, the fans would hate it, because Pinkerton is the fan favorite album by unanimous sort of kind of feedback, and that's a quite deep, introspective, serious album. But yeah, I get your point. Def.
And I will say, just as a last note on this, and I'm sure we'll discuss things to this effect throughout our discussion tonight, but OK Computer, I mean, lyrically sits not too dissimilarly from this and is very stream of consciousness in a lot of places. But again, musically, they took a real big dive, I think, on that one into something that was quite unknown, and took a big chance there.
What did I say when OK Computer came out? It was the best Weezer album since Pinkerton. So I think that says everything from where I'm standing. Anyway, maybe we should move on to the third track.
Let's get on to the third track. That's End of the Game. And as we take you on to that, I'm going to take you back to the heady days of 2019. Green Day, Weezer, and Fall Out Boy have been teasing for a big announcement for a couple of weeks. We roll up to September. I can distinctly remember sitting in the office as my dream tour lineup is announced. I cannot tell you how ecstatic I am to be able to see 3 bands who all probably occupy slots in my top 5 of all time list on the same fucking tour. And each band dropped a single to accompany the announcement. Green Day released Father of All. We've already talked about that. I think it was a pretty stark warning of what was to come on that album. Fall Out Boy dropped Dear Future Self featuring Wycliffe Jean, which is very much a modern Fall Out Boy song, but still a certified bop in my books. But Weezer dropped The End of the Game. This is genuinely one of those songs that, like you with, David Comes to Life, Cam, I can still remember listening to for the first time and how it made me feel. But I have to remember that I'm one of 3 sitting here to talk about this. So, gentlemen, please can one of you start talking about The End of the Game while I quietly wet myself over here?
So I actually also remember on this because that tour got announced while I was in Chicago. And I think I was sat at O'Hare Airport when this song was released. And listened to, I can't remember if it was the Green Day one that came out when I was at O'Hare or this one, but either way, I remember listening to this very distinctly while I was in Chicago. And staying up till 4 a.m. to buy hella many tickets that I still haven't got to go to. But yeah, I mean, we've got a kind of another cool tapping style thing to start off the song. I mean, it just feels like Weezer put less time into this verse than it lasts in time. And it's kind of badly written, and it's not even that catchy until it hits that power pop chorus. Just that and the final bridge are enough to save this song from being quite a bad song, in my opinion, to a really, really good song. I'm saying it's a good song, Matt. The chorus and the bridge take it from being, like I was saying, a bad song to just fun and enjoyable. And it's one of the only times I felt like that with this album. I think it worked better weirdly as a single, even though it fits fine in the context of the album. If this was a standalone Weezer song, I could probably get more into it, but when you've kind of gone through this formula twice already, at this point, it's a little bit harder.
This is where I kind of got the real Van Halen vibes from on this song, like tapping intro, and then you're into that kind of classic kind of chuggy. This is almost a Van Halen intro, like note for note, again, super hooky choruses here. Some self-referencing. You've got On an Island with No Sun. Obviously brings back good memories for some people. Yeah, super hooky chorus. Some really great backing vocals on this. And not shy about the references. There's like that kind of that lick from Journey, Don't Stop Believing, comes through. Kind of leading, well, during the bridge. Bridge goes into like this halftime kind of vibe. It's nice and chunky. I think it's a good song. I like it. I enjoyed it. It's a bit gimmicky, and it's again not taking itself too seriously. But if you don't take it too seriously, there's a lot to like in here, I think.
I am 100% sure, and Cam, you've already proved it, that this isn't a song that holds up well to a critical eye. But man, I really don't give a fuck. As we've already alluded to, it never asks you to do that, right? Weezer roll up doing their Van Halen impression, ask you to crank the song, ask you to air guitar with your headphones on, and that's it, right? Rivers might have been writing to Susie, but he was 100% right. We dig the same type of melodies, and they may well yet get me next to him. I thought I would grow tired of this song, but for the last year plus, I never have. It hits all the right spots. Chorus melody is perfection and melts like butter all over those cranked up guitars. There are a lot of missteps in the lyrics. The Chronicles of Narnia reference stuck out like a sore thumb. But there are so many places where I think the lyrics work on this. The melody "Can't Find You, I'm Incomplete Without You" is not the deepest line that Rivers has written, but it hits right every single goddamn time. And I'm not going to lie to you guys, every time this song has come on this week, and that's been a lot of times, I have sung along, I have tried to fight the urge to bounce along, and in the best case scenarios, I have managed to limit myself to tapping my foot. Um, Clearly a song that's written with large venues of the Hella Mega Tour in mind, and I so hope that they play it in 2022 when that tour finally becomes a reality. But yeah.
For me, it's one of the only moments on this album where it's actually fun for me to listen to one of these songs. I actually enjoyed this song, and I don't know if it's because, like I said, I got the single context beforehand, and it felt like because the gimmick was so on the nose that I could kind of enjoy it. It's like there is almost nothing to evaluate about this song. It's a Van Halen tribute song with some Weezer lyrics, and it's very bouncy, it's very fun, and it's got an amazing chorus. And you don't really need to talk about it much more deeply than that. But it's even though there's lots of songs where I should feel that way on this album, this is one of the only moments where I actually do. So I am in agreement with you that it is a good song overall. But yeah, it is one of those only moments that I think actually hits right. And aside from the obvious Chronicles of Night, I think the Aslan reference um, does stick out like a sore thumb. It's one of the less cringy kind of lyrical performances on the album.
Yeah, we're coming to that, I feel.
Oh,
um, but yeah, like I said, if you try not to take it too seriously, and maybe like enjoyable song is a probably slightly better term than good song, from an objective standpoint, but it's definitely enjoyable.
yeah. I mean, I don't care if this song is dumb. I really don't care if I'm dumb for liking it. I just absolutely fucking love it. It's so good.
You said it nice.
We need a title for this week. All right. I mean, I still need to catch my breath from thinking about this song. So Cam, can you talk us through? I need some of that, please.
I'm gonna surprise you here and say this is a really good song. Okay. The intro doesn't just feel like 80s guitar hero worship. It, the only problem with it again is what stops it from being classic Pinkerton or blues levels is a lazy verse. Um, just some palm muted guitar following the progression, and it's pretty much the same every song. There's no real divergence from that thing. That being said, the chorus is just so good. The chorus is amazing. It's so catchy. The backing vocals are incredible. I mean, shout out to the backing vocals and the harmonies. I don't know if that comes from a producer or just Weezer being a pro band at this point and having 5 billion albums under their belt, and they just know how to make a good, harmonized chorus and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, it's really good. It's on point, and you can't argue with the as you put it, their chops for writing a good chorus. So I do really like this song. I will say, this is some of the worst lyrics so far, though. It's almost too bad. Daydreaming of my escape, listening to Aerosmith. Later on, I will call my mom.
Love it.
Like,
It's so
I
fucking
just
bad. I love it.
Oh, it's just it's so bad. Do you know what I mean? It's just like I get that Rivers writes stream of consciousness and puts all of his stuff into an Excel spreadsheet and then scans it for syllables, but it feels like AI wrote this. Do you know what I mean? Like it's beyond bad, and the fact that it's not parody, it kind of blows my mind.
I shit you not. I sat my wife in front of the computer last night and said, "Do you want to hear my 3 favorite lines on this Weezer album?" And I played her that. It's great. Just very quickly, I wanted to jump in and say, the producer of this album, who we mentioned earlier, Susie Shin, she provides some of those backing vocals that you were talking about there. And I just wanted to take a second here to shout out Susie Shin. From a little bit of research I scrolling through her Wikipedia page. This does actually appear to be the first major album that she's been listed as the sole producer of. She has done co-production on a bunch of previous Weezer albums. She's worked with Fall Out Boy and Panic at the Disco in a variety of audio engineering roles, composed a song on Ghost's 2018 album Prequel, and even had vocal production duties on Dua Lipa's song Begging off of her self-titled album. So hats off to Susie. I am apparently a very big fan of your work.
That's one thing I will say is you cannot fault the production on this album in any way, shape, or form. It's absolutely flawless. Might be a little clean for my taste. I like something a little bit rawer, just personally. But if it's a Weezer album, it's a Guitar Hero worship album. The production had to be flawless. Oh, actually, the one other thing I forgot about this song is it's kind of the first guitar solo we really hear on the album, which kind of surprised me, being 4 tracks in, and it's the first sort of really kind of guitar solo we hear, considering this is such a 80s metal worship album. That's kind of a big part that was really missing.
I didn't really write anything about the guitar solo, which is I just kind of glossed over that one mentally. But yeah, production like top notch, like it sounds epically good. It's just super polished. It does sound exactly like a Weezer album should and would sound though. Like there's no real big steps or kind of massive evolutions here. It's sound wise is exactly what you would expect from a Weezer album, and not necessarily that much more. Interesting that you say it kind of gets away from the Guitar Hero worship, or like I started picking up references all over this chorus, like specifically Boston, that call and response between the chorus lines sounds just like More Than the Feeling to my ear, and a bit of Blue Oyster Cult kind of thrown in there as well.
Sort of, sorry, but just meant more in terms of the intro, because every intro to all of these songs so far have been quite, like, obviously pastiche on 80s guitar music, and then it settles into a Weezer style verse. So I get the references in the chorus. It was more so the intro.
Yeah, I guess it's more of a mixing it up then, of like not doing it in the intro but doing it in the chorus. But yeah, big Boston and Blue Oyster Cult vibes there. And then always nice to hear a Shake It Up Baby. Twist and Shout, obviously absolute fucking classic. But yeah, it's the same kind of formula, isn't it? Massive chorus. This chorus sounds amazing, as referential as it is. It's another great hook. This is one that it's a proper earworm for me. The hook and the chorus on this is just always going to stick with me, and I think part of that is because it kind of references some of the artists I was listening to in my like early years of picking up the guitar and things like that. I think it'll resonate with a lot of people kind of our age, especially guitarists.
I've been grinning away as you guys have been talking about this. I have got so much to say here, and I really don't know where to start. I mean, I suppose the natural starting point is, to say that, again, for me, this is another top shelf track from this album. All of the Van elements that have been added into Weezer do a good job of complementing once again, rather than, I think, taking the focus away from a fantastic Weezer song, the hooky ass chorus being the best example of that. So last night I messaged you guys and said, I have something big to break you. I have a big surprise that I'm going to drop on you at some point on the stream. This is that time. This is that moment. Now, much like the name of the band we discussed last week, you are both aware that Weezer are big in Japan, right? Okay.
Yeah, massively so.
It turns out I Need Some of That is a track that's been knocking around for a little while. Originally, Weezer demoed it around the time the 2010's Hurley was being released. And then I ended up going down a bit of a rabbit hole when I should have been scripting late last night. But it turns out that Rivers has a side project with a gentleman called Scott Murphy from pop punk band Alistair called Scott and Rivers. Scott and Rivers features songs that are only released in Japan and sung entirely in Japanese. A couple of these songs have been lightly reworked and then released as Weezer songs in English. California Kids from the White Album is one of those songs, and so is I Need Some of That. I absolutely shit you not. This song was originally released in 2017 as Kaze Hukiba, which translates into English as When the Wind Blows. The whole song is sung by Rivers in Japanese, and I tell you what, it is a fucking wild ride. Light elements have been changed. I think surprisingly, all of the hair metal kind of stuff is still there in that original version of it. And you know, it just sprinkles in a little more J-pop in there, but fuck me, what it was a wild ride finding that. I really wish I could play it here right now to prove to you that it is a real thing. But yeah, I Need Some of That is just an English reworking of a 2017 Japanese song. And I like the English version a lot, but Kaze Hukiba is on a whole nother level. It's fucking incredible.
Doesn't actually surprise me that much because I know from, again, going back to Pinkerton, Rivers is a bit obsessed with Japanese culture, and his wife's Japanese, right?
That's right. Yeah.
So it doesn't surprise me in any way that he can speak Japanese, and I mean, I didn't know that he releases songs entirely in Japan and only for the Japanese market. That's a bit of a surprise, but it doesn't surprise me he can speak Japanese and would be into doing that kind of stuff. You know, he's got to make up the 4 minutes he has in between Weezer writing sessions by doing something else. So, yeah, that's interesting. It's actually
Is he
not
part
the
of
only.
Griselda?
It might as well be. They might release. But no, it doesn't actually surprise me. It's not the only time on this album as well. I don't know if you realized, but later on there is another track that they have reworked that has been floating around for a long time. So yeah, I mean, it's obviously a theme of this album that it was recycled.
I worry when you say that because I think you've written about the song that I didn't end up writing about because it was an LP bonus track. But anyway, we'll find that out later on, I think. It doesn't surprise me, I think, like you say, that, you know, Rivers would go down this route. But I think what did surprise me just, you know, less than 24 hours going on stream was like, yeah, no, like, I Need Some of That is a English reworking of a 2017 Japanese song. It's genuinely fucking incredible. So I mean, where do you go from there? I guess by moving on to beginning of the end. You know, I said at the start of this that I wasn't going to take this album too seriously, and quite obviously haven't been so far. But I have got a very serious point that I want to make here, right? We start this track with a police siren blaring, and man, I swear this is my biggest bugbear in music, full stop. Can bands stop doing this? Because the first time I listened to this track was when I was driving in my car. Man, that shit spins me for a loop every single time that it happens. And Weezer aren't the only band who do this. But are either of you guys with me?
I have a bigger bugbear on this track. That is annoying as that is, and that's the reason I don't often listen to like many hip hop tracks in the car unless I know that that's not gonna happen. My biggest bugbear about this track is, can we stop remaking 80s movies? I've seen the Bill and Ted film, and it's not good. This is obviously the song taken and used in the Bill and Ted movie that was released last year. I want to say, I think it was last year.
Yeah.
Which was, I mean, I watched it because I loved Bill and Ted as a child, and I really wish I hadn't, because, I mean, it's just, let's not go into that. Rivers and the gang can't write bad melodies. I'll give them that. You know, they're always catchy. They're always really good. And here they kind of play around with the structure a little bit, which is nice. It's still fun. It's still playful. But it isn't the same copy paste and formula that we've had through every other track of this album for me. You know, or actually, to be honest with you, the same copy and paste formula we've had for 5 out of the last 6 albums. You know, kind of that muted intro straight into the chorus, and a more upbeat verse really drives the song nicely. You know, big breakdown bridge. So I'm 99% sure it's taken straight from a Kiss song. It feels like it's transplanted from maybe God Gave Rock and Roll to You or something like that. Could again be another Bill and Ted reference. Actually making sense now in my head. Probably should have realized that earlier. Cool tap and solo, but it feels a little gimmicky. Probably intentionally so. I mean, yeah, it's fine. It's a fun song. I can't really say it goes into the classic musical canon of all time, but you know, it's fine.
I think it's becoming obvious from my notes that at some point I stopped listening really to the music and just started listening out for who they were referencing. Because as my notes kind of go on further and further, I've just got more different artists written down. This one, like, I kind of got some kind of Nirvana vibes from that versey riff. Reminded me of Drain You, that kind of sound. Big Nirvana fan, so that riff strikes a nice chord with me. And then the other bits I kind of picked up on this were the anthemic rock bridge. To me, the guitar work kind of sounded Brian May-ish, like a bit of an homage to Queen there. Definitely never afraid to kind of show who their idols are and who their influences are. And the ending, you know, I love an abrupt ending every time. It's like, oh, cool. Track length on this is like a refreshing change to some of the stuff we've been listening to. Like 3 minutes, you know, that's, I think the longest song on this is what, 3:57, the first song on this. You know, this is an album of 3-minute songs. I feel like they kind of do their job. They play their hooks multiple times, multiple times, and then they kind of get out of there before they can outstay their welcome. And I think this is another case of that.
It's fun, Brad, that you say that you like the abrupt ending, because obviously I'm guessing you used a music streaming service or something to listen to this. And when I'm not buying an album, the only one I can use is YouTube. And the video for this ends with a 3-minute sort of version of them talking to Keanu Reeves and the other guy from Bill and Ted. So it wasn't that abrupt an ending for me. It was just another 3 minutes of Bill and Ted.
I've missed all of the Bill and Ted has gone completely over my head. So
This was a song I think that's used in the film, as far as I remember.
You're absolutely right. It was released like a week before the movie came out, and it was very clear that it was a promotional thing for that movie. Which, yeah, I'd forgotten which one off this album was, so thank you for reminding me of that. You guys mentioned some references here and there, but it's actually Billy Joel that gets a writing credit for this track, which draws inspiration from The Longest Time. When Rivers was asked about it in an interview, he said that it was, quote, just a clearance thing, very common in recent years. I don't think Billy Joel has actually written a song since the 90s. Yeah, you know, one thing I love about Weezer songs is when Rivers inexplicably kicks up a gear out of nowhere. We get it in, we get a few of the key changes that made me fall in love with the guy on tracks like Across the Sea and a few places on this album. But there's a monumental tease towards one after the very kind of like Queen solo that's on this song. And, you know, he starts off low, you know, I'll still be here hanging on. And then it kicks up a gear and on and on. And you're thinking the whole thing is going to really build up and up from there. But it's just, you know, 2 more lines, some building ooze, and then the track falls away. And we just get that same chorus again. And as you say, that abrupt ending. I felt comprehensively teased. I think just coming back to the lyrics as well, I feel I have to get a positive note in before we move on to the next track. Even Old Man Rivers can write lyrics that still chime with me in the same way that albums like Pinkerton's struck me in teenage years. And on this track, it's watch us brush off the dust in heavy metal we trust. then kick back and read the Sunday Times. And a great way to describe a lot of my weekends, I think.
This song definitely teased me into listening to Drain You by Nirvana. That's what it led me straight into.
I just wanted to watch Bill and Ted, but classic Bill and Ted. Had the worst effect on me. It didn't want to make me watch the new Bill and Ted film at all.
Well, there you go. Weezer left all of us wanting for more with Beginning of the End. So, Blue Dream. Fair bit to unpack here. As we mentioned off the top, this song was lovingly given to a recent episode of The Simpsons. Cam, you're locked in a room. On a table in front of you is a gun that's loaded with a single bullet. You have a TV in one corner playing a new season of The Simpsons on it. On the other side of the room is a stereo playing a new Weezer album. Which do you shoot?
I mean, I always go for the. Oh, which do I shoot? I shoot the stereo. I shoot the stereo all day long. I hate modern Simpsons. For anyone that doesn't know, I am a huge fan of classic Simpsons to the point where I have an entire jacket covered in Simpsons patches. My favorite being "Can I Borrow a Feeling?" Coke Van Houten. Classic song. New Simpsons is bad. This Weezer song is worse. Just the less said about this, the better. It's not a sample even. It's not even a homage or a tribute. It's just Rivers singing the most god awful melody over Crazy Train with some. This is actually one of the points I'm going to really criticize the production on this, because it just feels so unnecessary at points here. It's fading in and out, and it's just like, well, what was the point of that? It doesn't add anything to the track other than a point to annoy me. If you want to do a cover, do a cover. I'm fine with that. You know, Weezer did an entire album of covers. Don't do this. This is lazy beyond belief. The melody's bad. It just feels like amateur high school talent show. The whole song. This is as bad as Weezer get, and this is why modern Weezer is so polarizing, because they will pump out stuff like this, and it's not fun for anyone. I don't even see how it's fun for Weezer, honestly. Just do the cover. Cover Crazy Train. Crazy Train is a classic song. Randy Rhoads is a great guitar player. You'll have a lot of fun playing a Randy Rhoads song, but don't do this.
Yeah, you know, the Crazy Train riff gets a lot of focus here. And again, Ozzy had to be given a writing credit for this song. But if I'm being honest, I think that focusing on that too much means you miss out on some wild, wild lyrics. I've got the first verse here, plus a couple of lines from the second verse. I've set something up here. You two won't be able to hear this, but our listeners will. I've got some accompanying smooth jazz, so I can really help you all settle into it. Blue Dream, Rivers Cuomo, 2019. The fishes are my friends, underneath the sea, swimming all around. They want to be with me. The octopus says hi. I say, how do you do? He's quite the gentleman to give me 8 salutes. Everyone gets laid when they get to the beach. I bet you really wish you were here with me. That is some wild, wild shit right there.
And this is what I'm saying. That is indicative of the quality of this song. And it's not just Ozzy Osbourne that gets a writing credit here. It's Randy Rhoads, because it's easy, if you're not that familiar with the song, to know the Crazy Train riff. You know, it's a very classic, very iconic riff. But it's the verse and the chorus that's ripped off as well. It's not even just they've you know, sampled that one riff. They've done the whole damn song. I can't talk about it anymore. Let Brad talk.
Yeah, I've got Crazy Train and Fishes, so I think you've pretty much
So you
both.
covered that.
It is kind of like, it is like a cover, but to the detriment of both songs. You know, like, it's kind of, it does feel a bit forced in places. You've got like that kind of the intro riff kind of coming back over like the major chord bit, like ends up emphasizing the sixth. It just sounds weird. It just sounds strange to me. Apart from Crazy Train and Fishes, like what else is there really to say about it? It feels like a low kind of effort song, and I think it would have been better off if they had just literally covered
And also, on a low effort album, this is the lowest effort song that they can achieve. I don't think you can get much lower effort than this. Really don't.
And I'm also very much looking forward to watching the YouTube video back of this and seeing Matt's rendition to Smooth Jazz.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to you guys hearing that too. Yeah, even the Weezer apologist over here in the bottom third of your screen can say that I really didn't enjoy this track at all. Dreadlocks chiming in saying, having heard those lyrics, I'm wondering why I put so much effort into mine. I'm making the wrong music. We haven't been kind to them. I guess that's the only thing that I'll say.
Dreadlocks ain't got a patch on Rivers. You can't write like that.
Okay, let's move swiftly on to one more hit. Brad, let's give you the chance to say something other than Fishes and Crazy Train.
Metallica?
Yeah, certainly got Metallica and Slayer influences on this one.
We're straight in with Enter Sandman. Like the drums, the intro, it's exactly the same. Again, like not necessarily a problem. Where it does kind of fall down, I feel, on this one is something we've been praising them for kind of throughout, is the melody on the chorus and some of the lyrical content, which is just like actually making Cameron wince slightly. Is just like, why? I found it really hard to kind of concentrate and pick out anything other than that. You've got Pump It Into Me. You've got a really simplistic melody in the chorus. It's obviously a song about addiction, but it just feels kind of shallow to me, especially lyrically. But I did dig the Metallica reference, and I did dig the kind of Master of Puppets. You got Enter Sandman, and you've got Master of Puppets. After the last kind of chorus, there are some good like musical bits in here, but I just find it very hard to get away from like the lyrical content here.
That's just it, Brad. And if you didn't have vocals on this song, you could almost be fooled into thinking this was a good song. And I honestly hate being this critical of a band I do truly love, and will go in to see live again at some point, no doubt.
You got tickets.
I've got tickets, and I will be going to see them at some point. But honestly, did they just feed AI like, here's some drug references and we're gonna write a song about it? I mean, you've got I'm writhing in bed for just a puff, just a little spike. It's like 80s kind of level don't do drugs kid video in school, or one puff of a marijuana cigarette is gonna kill you or something
it's
like
bad
that.
rope fucking hash pipe.
Well, yeah, I mean, but that's a completely different thing. The lyrics are good on that, and they're not.
No, this is what I'm saying. Like,
Yeah.
it's just fucking crazy that it comes to this after that, right?
And it's the same theme of the song, right? But in the chorus, instead of, it being kind of hidden, and I didn't realize till I was an adult what Hashpipe was about, you can't escape the fact that the chorus of this song goes, pump it up into me, please daddy, please daddy. He just needs to stop.
Please.
He needs to stop doing this. He's a 50-year-old man, and it makes me uncomfortable when he says lyrics like that, sings lyrics like that, whatever. It's just that there's no edit, there's no filter. I don't think anyone in the band is saying to him, please don't write stuff like this. Honestly, if you'd come to me with those lyrics, I would have had serious thoughts about your position in our music writing process. I love this band, I really do, but please just go away, take 3 or 4 years, and come back with a good album, because this isn't it. It's just not it.
Shout out Lala Kukalala in chat. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. They chime in. The jazz segment was reminiscent of Shatner's spoken word poetry. It was magnificent. I was really hoping to be able to put that underneath you, Cam, when you were saying those lyrics right there. I think that would have been a nice fit too. Yeah, like you said, we get Scott's Metallica and Slayer influences coming through here. And between this track and Blue Dream, setting aside all of the other issues, you get the feeling that this is the spot where they really started to go hell for leather into the theme and treat it as less window dressing than it has been in spots, but as the central themes to the songwriting. But yeah, it's got something else in common with Blue Dream, and that's distracting ass lyrics.
I think you nailed it when you said if there weren't lyrics, you could be fooled into thinking this was a good song, because there are some good musical moments in here. Like the second verse has got like my favorite kind of lead interlude. It's got like this like nice little chromatic rundown, which makes you feel like you're falling, and then like some dissonance. And I like the chops between like the Master of Puppets bits and the Weezer bits. Musically, there's a lot to like here, but God, pump it up into me, Daddy. It just completely like took me out of like any enjoyment I could have had. I think.
What really annoys me is Weezer have written songs like this before about this very subject and done them great justice. There's a song on, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Red Album, that deals with drug use, and this kind of thing. Because obviously I think this is alluding to River's past in some way. I don't know the full details of it, but they do a great job on that album. It's a great song about this sort of drug use. Hash Pipe is an all-time classic. I used to come on Kerrang. I'd be like, oh, this band's so good. I love this band so much. And it's got that killer riff, and it's almost reminiscent in that way because it's got that chunky kind of guitar riff. I just don't know what's happened. It just feels so by the numbers at this point, and it almost feels like a pastiche of themselves lyrically. And this is where it really stops being fun for me because it's so. I really don't want to say it, but it's so bad that it takes you out of that moment.
I'm with you there, Brad. Where I enjoyed how Metallica-esque it was in parts. There's a couple of moments, I think particularly when you get towards the end of the song, when it's just like, yeah, no, they wanted to write Master of the Puppets here, or they listened to a lot of Master of the Puppets and then hopped in the studio. But yeah, I get the idea of a band writing a song about addiction and drugs on an album that's a tribute to the bands of the 70s and 80s. And as you say, there's a lot in Weezer's back catalog that deals with drugs, etc. But this is very, yeah, it's a very strange song. Nice musically, but not the first time that Rivers' lyrics have been described as problematic, I would say.
Just the Weezer apologist stumbling.
Hey, I'm not covered in bias here. We've got lovely license fee payers on this channel, right? At least that's what you guys told me. I'm still getting paid, right?
Yeah, if you're not getting paid, if I'm not getting paid, you ain't getting paid. I had to listen to Bad Weezer for a week. I deserve to pay.
So let's move on to Sheila Can Do It. And yes, would it be an album that's a proper tribute to this era if it didn't have a song about drugs preceding it? But then this song starts with an intro that is a motorcycle starting up and driving off, presumably down a dusty desert highway. After the last two, oh no, you're making that face. I was going to throw it to you. Now I don't want to. Cam, what you feeling here?
We even still need to talk about this record, honestly.
Yes.
The performances sound lazy here. Even in the bass and guitar, I can't explain it, but they just sound like they'd rather be playing anything else. They sound that lazy. They sound that phoned in here. This feels like a B-side to a C-side album. how this saw the light of day on a major label release, I can't explain. I honestly can't. This song was one of the ones I was mentioning earlier. It was written in 1997. And if it takes that long for it to release on a major on a full album, can it really be that good quality? It just feels like it was so thrown together. Honestly, it felt so lazy to me in so many aspects.
Come on, Brad, help me out. Has this track got you shaving your legs and feeling all right?
I don't think I'm going to be able to help you out too much here.
Oh,
I'm afraid. I think at this point in the album, I had kind of given up on it as well. You know, I've got the muscle car sounds, same as you've mentioned with the bike. The verse is kind of probably one of the better verses, I think, possibly on this album. It's nice and bouncy. It's kind of got a Beach Boys kind of vibe. Again, going back to my theme of just looking for any other artist I can reference at this point. The pre-chorus, Thin Lizzy. This kind of vocal phrasing there is very Thin Lizzy. This song just made me want to go and listen to other songs, you know. And it's the same as I've said before. It's like there's not much to say about this song. I don't feel I've literally given up at some point on this and gone chorus. Fuck knows. And that is pretty much how I feel about this. This is kind of a nothing song. I don't think there's anything really to hate about it. I think you could let it kind of gloss over you, but I don't think this is going to end up on anyone's kind of go-to list as a song to listen to.
The point it becomes a song to hate for me is the fact that this is the ninth song on this album, and I feel like I've been through this 9 times before already on
I
this album.
I don't know.
In terms of laziness
I
that
don't
I
know.
feel in the songwriting.
I really I would push back against that, I think, because look, I off the top, I'm gonna say here, upbeat and poppy. Hook is one that does dig right into your brain, or it does mine at least. But overall, I have also written down largely forgettable. I do think, though, it is drawing on a slightly different place than a lot of the other stuff that has preceded it. Brad, you said Beach Boys. I think that there's a lot of, like the very early punk that was coming out of New York and things like that you could look at on this track as well, sound wise, which, you know, different time, different sound to, Van Halen. It was gonna happen one time. Yeah, Van Halen, Queen, Metallica, Sabbath, etc. And I do think, you could take this song and drop it into the era that it's trying to evoke, and it would fit in just right, aside from the 2019, 2020, 2021 production that's on it. One thing that I will say, though, I did think that there were some moments that were a bit strange with the vocals on Sheila Can Do It. My super technical description of it would be that they seem to get a bit buzzy in places. For you two, the more technical, what might that be?
Buzzy would usually come from clipping, really, or like too much. It depends what kind of buzzing it was. Really, was it like a distortion? I didn't hear it, but was it like a distorted kind of sound, or did it feel like oversaturation of something?
See, you've already gone beyond my knowledge level there. It was
I don't think. Yeah, I don't think there's any. There's not going to be any clipping on this
No,
album.
I'd
You
be
know,
very
you
surprised if
can
there
like
was.
guarantee that. It's kind of got like a chorusy kind of effect on it. I think. It does kind of feel the vocal does kind of sound a bit hollowed out and a bit like sounds very like kind of processed. I didn't really pick up on it though. I think I'd kind of given up on this song by that point before I got that deep, to be perfectly honest.
It was the point that I switched off from this song was the chorus melody, and it really speaks volumes to me that when Weezer don't write a good chorus, it's a bad song. Because the chorus for this, if Sheila can do it, I can do it. I don't have a problem with that. I didn't feel as a listener like it warranted me giving it a deep listen, and I really struggled to give it a deep listen because of that.
I
It didn't. It didn't ever feel fun. It didn't ever feel light and playful. It just felt pointless.
but
That
I
was
don't
the
know if yeah,
how
I don't know
much?
if maybe we've been spoiled a bit, but it feels like every album we've listened to so far, we've all come away with this feeling that we could listen to this another 100 times and get something more from it and find something else that we didn't spot the first time. I don't know in this track if there's anything else over like 200 listens that I would ever pick up on, you know.
I I want to make sure that this is framed directly, or sorry, framed correctly when I say this. But I'm not making a direct comparison between these two songs. I know one of them is on a complete other level compared to the other one here, right? But in terms of the formula of this song, in terms of the general sound, in terms of that chorus melody, how much really separates it from a track like Buddy Holly?
fact that I haven't had 30 years worth of listening to tracks like Buddy Holly when I first heard Buddy Holly. Do you know what I mean?
Hmm.
It's, Buddy Holly felt fresh to me the first time I listened to it because I never heard a song like that before. Um, I didn't grow up in a house that listened to the Beach Boys, who are a clear influence on Weezer throughout their career. Not just on this track or other album, like every album, Um, and when the first time you hear Buddy Holly, it's wow, that's a really fresh take on music that was coming out from that time. It's got that kind of fuzzy feel, but it's great power pop, and it's really unique. And it didn't feel phoned in. It felt like a band that cared. This, to me, this track feels like a band that's just pumping out nothing. At this point, it just feels like they're going into a studio. I mean, I watched the iHeartRadio live show of this, and they literally said they don't even go into the studio together. They just go in, record their parts separately, review it at the end. Oh yeah, that'll do. I don't see how that's a productive way to. Can you imagine if we wrote songs entirely in isolation to each other and didn't hear them until they were finished? How that would work? That to me doesn't smack of a band that actually cares about what they're putting out. They just want to live in this Spotify world where you have to put out an album every year to keep relevant, to keep the sales up, to keep the money flowing in. Not that I'm sure Weezer need money at this point, but that's just what it feels like. And this song is very evocative of that feeling. It's 30 years too late for me to care about it, basically.
Well, there we go. No, fair enough. Fair enough. I'd be interested. I will say I bet that they are not unique in that approach to songwriting, or I bet that they probably aren't unique. Especially if bands that have been around and doing it as long as Weezer have. But yeah, no, that's an interesting one.
Just going back to your like comparison with Buddy Holly, the thing with Buddy Holly is you mention it and I can hear it in my head. I can hear basically the whole track. It's like lodged deep in my memory, and it feels like they were all into it. Like it's got a presence that isn't on this, and it's got this like kind of tightness. And if you think about that chorus riff, you think about like how locked in the bass and the guitar is. This is probably 5 years or something since I've listened to this track, but it's got that attitude that is like feels more coherent and does feel like they give more of a shit about it.
Brad's
Don't
right.
necessarily I don't
Sorry, go
necessarily
on, Brad.
think this is entirely phoned in. Like it's not like you can obviously tell it's not like a bunch of amateurs that have got together and made it. It's got it does glue, it does gel, but at this point in this album it's not making me feel really anything, you know.
I think that's fair, and I think it's funny that we we have ended up having this much of a discussion about a track that all three of us just said, yeah, not really much, largely forgettable, right?
Brad's
It's most
100% right, though, right? You think about Buddy Holly as a song, and I guarantee without listening to it, if I did this and just went, you'd know exactly what part of that song I was referring to, wouldn't you? Like the little lick at the beginning, right? With the kind of thing that happens, this iconic part of that song. I can't even tell you what happened in this song other than a very vague part of the chorus from memory right now. And I know I haven't got, 20 years of listening to this song like I have Buddy Holly, but I don't think given another 20 years I could tell you a single thing that comes out of this song having listened to it another 200 times.
As much as if Sheila can do it, I can do it. I don't have a problem with that. Is branded into my brain right now. I'm sure that won't be the case after I listen to an album for a week next week. Anyway, I will give you that. Okay, let's move on to She Needs Me. Brad, what do you think of this song?
Again, more references written down here. You've got a kind of warbly guitar intro, which I liked. The chord progression very reminiscent of Stones here. Sympathy for the Devil like jumped out at me straight away, just from the chord progression, and then the bit where he's going about She Needs Me, big kind of pop punky sound. I feel like after Sheila Can Do It, this is much more kind of memorable, even if it is going back to more of a kind of classic Weezer formula. At this point, we're kind of probably crying out for it a bit. There's a nice solo in here. It's kind of typical structure-wise of what we've come to expect from Weezer and like the power pop thing. But all in all, a much better song, I think.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. It's a better song. It's not a great song by any means. It's still pretty forgettable and it still feels a little phoned in to me. But it is a much, much better song. There's no doubt. We've said it many times. Rivers and the other boys from Weezer can write a great melody. They've proved that over this album. They've, done it time and again. Not all the way through this album, admittedly, when usually they do. But they can. It just feels like the lyrics are thrown together 3 minutes before the first vocal take goes on. It just every musical cliche in the Weezer songbook happens here. I love power pop, but honestly, it's lazy. It is just nothing else to say about that. It's all recycled. It just feels like make believe era Weezer. I'm pretty sure it's all recycled from that album. There's nothing new here that I haven't heard from Weezer before, and it just again I'm struggling to have fun with it because I love pizza, but I don't want to eat pizza every night. And at the minute, Weezer are giving me Weezer every year. You know what I mean? With no divergence from the formula, and at a certain point, it stops being fun, and I need to eat my vegetables.
I definitely got more of a Green Day kind of vibe from this song in a couple of places, and I'm always down for a Green Day vibe, and but if the best thing you can say about a Weezer song it reminded you of Green Day, I don't know what that really says about it.
And it doesn't remind you of classic Green Day either. It's not the greatest Green Day song you've ever heard, is it? It's a it's a cut from I don't know Nimrod or something. You know what I mean? It's not a masterpiece by any stretch of the imagination. I definitely got that. The chorus is Green Day all over, that kind of vocal harmony thing going on, punk rock Beatles-esque vibes. Yeah, that's the best thing you can say about a track. The quality of it.
I don't know. I'm kind of here for that though, and it's good to hear. They do it well. They still do it well. I think this has still got a good chorus on it. Like going back to Sheila Can Do It. I think this is a stronger chorus, but are we just comparing and contrasting with the previous song?
I will say it's a better Green Day song than anything Green Day have released in the last 5 years. So,
and I won't argue with more Nimrod as well. I think on the face of it. I did a big ooh, and I leaned back in my chair when you said the lyrics. We've had a couple of disagreements, I think, on this album, and I think we knew this as well coming into this, that this would be the case. That might be my biggest one, I think, on the entire album, and I'll tell you why. I think that lyrically this is one of the smarter songs on the album. On the face of it, yeah, looks like quite a paint by numbers, low effort example of a song about a girl, right? She needs me, and that's why I need her. But there are some really good moments that flip your usual expectations of a mainstream song about a man doing anything for a woman. Usually it's all like, I'd storm the gates, I'd fight through fire, I'll fuck up the demons or whatever. But Rivers here instead writes, in this big bad world, there's things I do. When she needs help, I come through. Sometimes she hands me a jar of Jif, and I feel good when I open it. That's a much more realistic example of the things that someone does for their partner or someone they love, right? Record your favorite shows, listen when they're upset, keep them warm when they go to bed. That's the thing that you're doing 98% of the time when you're fulfilling that promise to do anything for the person that you love. And, you know, sure, there are those big moments. They don't come around so often. I love it. And I really think that only Rivers can write and pull off something like this. It's so simple, but so well done for me.
It's interesting you say that, and I will maybe do a slight recoil and say that is probably smarter than I initially thought that this song was. But this song doesn't deserve that kind of time to get that deep with the lyrics on it. And then that's probably why I missed it, which is a shame because, you know, what you're saying there is true. Those are good lyrics. Those are good themes. I think, again, they're slightly... yeah, I don't know really how to put it, but they're not the greatest lyrics I've ever heard, put it that way. But they're good themes and they're good lyrics. But the chorus is so by the numbers, and that's on a first listen what you first pick up from lyrically. You know, I'm not gonna pick up all the lyrics from the verse. And when it is just she needs me, and that's why I need her, I am never ever gonna delve deeper into the lyrics because of that. I think you've got to write smarter in the part that people are gonna really focus on. And for Weezer, because all they seem to want to do at the minute is write hooks, you have to write that in your hook.
I think this may be just another example of, you know, one of the differences about me growing up in the place that I grew up versus you guys growing up in the place that you grew up. Because I think any American who listens to this song, the first thing that they're going to pick up on the first listen is not the chorus. It's going to be the thing that comes before it. And that's a shout out to a brand of peanut butter.
See, Jif here is cleaner. Well, you live here. You should know that.
Yeah,
I should, but yeah, I don't know. Talking about, you know, I'd do anything for the person that I love. Opening a can of UK Jif maybe doesn't happen as often as it should.
Well, we got lucky there. I'm on 1% battery and I just didn't notice.
Ooh-wee.
Yeah, I mean, it's fine, but, you know, it's not the greatest song I've ever heard.
Yeah. Well, look, okay, so we're only just now approaching the half-hour mark of this album, but we're on to the closer, Precious Metal Girl.
Wait, no, She Needs Me was the last song, and that's where we're finishing the review, right? Yeah. we all in agreement?
Uh-oh.
I would like to be. I would love to be, but yeah, unfortunately, there is another track.
Uh-oh. That's not what my words say. My words say nice things again.
This is why it's so taste making, because we either love our album or one of us loves it and one of us hates it, so that's fine.
And there's three of us, so hey, So for all of our talk about heavier guitars and the like, we close out with pretty much just an acoustic guitar. I actually tried to track down whether there were any other Weezer albums that closed out with a solely acoustic track since Pinkerton, just so I could make a direct comparison between those albums. But there were enough that were kind of just close enough that I couldn't make that incredibly tenuous link. Not for lack of trying, mind you. Shall I say the good things and then you can close off with the bad, or
why don't we do one bad, one good, one bad? The classic work 1-to-1.
Shit sandwiched. Let's go.
Yeah, man. I'm not even going to touch on the lyrics here because I think I'd just be repeating myself. they're horrific. It's a nice ballad again with a good melody, more heavy metal references and repeat. It was fun when they did this 30 years ago when they did this kind of song. It's not fun anymore, and that's the biggest crime of this album. There's no uniqueness in style anymore. There's no depth there. It's just a world away from what they've previously achieved, and probably still could, in my opinion. I wasn't expecting this album to be a critically acclaimed piece of work. Um, just by title alone, I think that's a fair statement. But the fact that it's not even particularly fun to listen to throughout most of it is probably its biggest crime. One of the things we like to talk about is whether you go see a band live. I would definitely go see Weezer live, but only because I know they won't play anything from this album. And that's genuinely how I feel about this last song. There's not a lot else you can say about it. It's a nice ballad, but I've heard it before. It's again another kind of Green Day song, right?
Yeah. I mean, I say I have nice things written down. What I do have written down on this track is that it is thoroughly pleasant. Right? The one thing I'll say, the use of backing vocals is some stellar work here. You've got some very faint vocals following the main melody about a couple of octaves lower through most of the lines, which gives some texture to a very stripped back track. And then later on, you get some higher ones that are, again, so faintly present in the background at the end of the song. Is there a huge amount to write home about? No. Is it unique? No. Is it something that I have heard other bands do before? Could you drop this onto another Weezer album? Could you drop this onto, a lot of guitar-driven bands' albums as their closer? Yes, absolutely. And do I enjoy this song, and would I be happy to listen to it again? Yeah. I think it closes the album out nicely.
I don't think anyone would be like massively unhappy to listen to this song, but I don't think anyone would be massively happy to listen to this song either. And I think you've both kind of hit on my main point about this song, which was you could drop this onto almost any kind of rock band's album, regardless of where in the genre of rock they sit, and it would be a perfectly acceptable song to kind of fit on that album. You could drop this into like a pop punk album somewhere. You could drop this into like a Nickelback album. There's just nothing about it that screams Weezer, apart from obviously his vocals. You could just drop it onto anything and it would be fine. It would be fine. It's not horrific. I've not given the lyrics the time of day, really, to be perfectly honest. There's
he
just
mentions
nothing.
mining, and I think it shows how far language and everything has moved over the last 6 months that I had to sit there, and it's a track literally called Precious Metal Girl, but because he mentions bonds and stocks at the beginning of it, I'm just like, is Rivers not getting into crypto? I feel like he should be getting into crypto. Everybody's in crypto. And they did NFTs for the last album. There you go. Sorry, derailing everything.
Yeah. There's nothing further to derail here. Like this could drop into almost any album from any band that you've never heard of and not make a dent, not make a scene. You wouldn't notice it.
And it's on an album full of nothing songs that pass you by and make you feel nothing. This is the most nothingy nothingness song that's ever nothinged. It's just I've heard people in pubs play songs like this. I've heard buskers on the streets play much better songs than this sort of thing. It's just guy with acoustic guitar playing ballad that isn't actively unpleasant to listen to, but also no one's ever going to play this again after this week.
Well, I think that's a good time to move on to our sum up discussion where I may surprise you. Brad, why don't you kick us off?
We go for the shit sandwich approach again. There are some really good moments in here, and there are some really good Weezer moments in here as well. It's not the covers album I was expecting, and for the most part, I think that's a good thing. There are certain moments, possibly around 60% of the way through, where I wish it was a covers album from there on out. To coin a phrase, it is what it is. It very much is. I don't think any song on this album would make me want to come back to this album or revisit anything. And maybe that is because we've been so spoiled with these streams and things that even like things that aren't necessarily to our tastes, we've gone, I know there's more to this that we can like dig through. I don't feel like there's that much more to this album to dig through. I feel like on the whole it's fairly shallow. I feel like it can be very enjoyable. There are some great like anthemic chorusy moments, some great hooks in there. And if you put it on and you let it kind of wash over you, I think you will get some enjoyment out of this. And I think you've already kind of summed up my feelings on this fairly early on, Matt. You said something about one of the songs being enjoyable rather than you liked it. And I think that kind of sums it up quite nicely for me. Like I could put this on and I could enjoy it and I could enjoy hearing it, but when you actually dig deep, I don't feel like there's that much worthy of coming back to.
So, last week, right, I said that Fortitude was sitting atop of my album of the year discussions, but considering the limitations that genre had with me, it probably wouldn't keep the top place for the whole year. But man, I didn't expect something to so roundly beat it so quickly.
You are joking, right?
Yeah, I just wanted to see if I could get the thumbnail for this week. I was looking at you, Cam, there just to see.
Just me and Brad like, what?
Yeah, no. I know we differ on this album. I really, really.
This isn't even in album of the week discussions.
Yeah, I haven't listened to another album that came out this week, and this isn't even in that discussion.
Yeah, we differ here. I'll be the first to accept that there are some real clunkers on here. Some of them more endearing than others. Overall, I was really looking forward to this album for quite a long time, and it didn't disappoint for me. I think a lot of what I said about the end of the game is a microcosm for my overall thoughts about this album. I know it doesn't stand up to critical scrutiny, but Weezer are a band that never ask you to do that. They certainly didn't ask you to do that on this album, and I really don't care if it doesn't do that. This is a band I come to for fun, and for me, they deliver it in big buckets here. It's cheesy, it's on the nose, it's fucking dad rock, but there's nothing wrong with that every now and then. And this is one of the examples of that is going to stick with me. I keep coming back to the fact that the title of this album is Van Weezer, and everything that's been said about it is going to give, and indeed has given, a lot of people preconceived notions about what it is. But for me, at its core, this is a good Weezer album. OK Computer was released at the beginning of this year. It's an album that I loved. I think it's more of a, I've said it already tonight, I think it's more of a departure from the Weezer sound than this album is. And Brad, you coined a phrase, I'm going to borrow a phrase. This is just a Weezer album where all the songs are turned up to 11. They're written ready for stadiums and arenas across the world on the Hella Mega Tour, and I love it. End of the Game has made me consistently feel things over the last year that are the exact reason that I listen to music. And for me, it's tracks like this that are the reason that I'm sitting here spending a couple of hours every Friday talking about music, right? And nothing can take that away, not even Blue Dream.
Not gonna music. I'm
Fuck
allowed to
this
do
world.
that.
Um, I'd love to lop this record in half and lose a few tracks. But I'll happily take it along with all of its foibles and add it to my rotation.
For me, I want to do this in several ways, right? So we've been doing this. This is our 9th episode, and we've been treated some real artistic vision throughout these 9 weeks. Does it stand up to any of that scrutiny? It's not Fortitude. It's not the Spirit of the Beehive record. It's not even the Lana Del Rey record. It's not fair to compare them to those records. So you have to look at ones. You have to look at ones that were more fun. And the very first week we did this was Slope, which was a really fun record and probably wasn't that artistically amazing, but it was a lot of fun and I consistently had fun with it. Does it stand up to that? No. And again, maybe that's not fair. It's a different genre. So then you have to go back and does it even stand up to Weezer's own recent catalog? And I'm not talking classic catalog. I'm talking recent catalog. And for me, it doesn't even stand up to that. I genuinely enjoyed the Black Album more. I genuinely have enjoyed. Weezer fans talk about Hurley and Raditude being the worst Weezer albums, and for me, this is one of those. This goes into the Raditude, Hurley, Van Weezer category, unfortunately. I I really tried to have fun with it. I didn't even have fun. It just felt quite painful to listen to this repeatedly. It felt like a band that didn't want to do this. I don't know how to explain that because obviously they chose to write this album, and they chose to do it this way, but it felt like a band that just does it because it's their job now rather than something they love. And they knew that a gimmick like Van Weezer would get them a bit of attention, which it has. You can't say much more than that for me. It was an album built on a gimmicky title, and that's about as deep as it goes. I just didn't even have fun listening to it. Sorry, man. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think as well as a premise, if you think about a kind of a modern reimagining of an 80s album, there are so many themes from the 80s that these days would be considered problematic, that you could do a really deep album and kind of turn some of those concepts on their head and do like a modern reimagining with the same sound and do a real deep dive on like the kind of lyrical content and kind of bring that lyrically into the 21st century. But even lyrically in here, there's nothing really to write home about.
And even still, they still have those problematic moments and themes. And Rivers has been criticized for this in the past, and he's still doing it. And I mean, someone needs to take lyric writing duty off. They really do. Let one of the other guys do it because, I mean, for every I don't know, Undone Sweater song, you get one more hit. There's one for one at this point, and I can't do it anymore.
Can you imagine someone taking all those like kind of problematic lyrical themes from like 80s dad rock and kind of shining a modern lens on them? And like I think that's quite an interesting concept, and it's a bit of a missed opportunity. Yeah,
would have been, and you could have had fun with that at the same time with the cheesy, gimmicky riffs and lines and stuff like that. But it never even lives up to kind of even a ounce of a concept like that. Yeah, Matt, you go.
No. I was just gonna say, I get what you're saying there. I think it's interesting to put that on the album that has come out, right? Because generally speaking, that's not something that you would come to a Weezer album for, right? Especially a more recent one, I think. I will say I didn't find many of the lyrics on this problematic aside from like, eyebrow raising in places, right? Because if we talk about like problematic these days, we're probably talking actually about a song which coincidentally, and maybe is why I'm not the right person to be talking about this, is like a previous Weezer song would be Across the Sea, which I think is my favorite Weezer song, full stop, but fully accept that is problematic lyrics. There's nothing that approaches anything like that here. I think it's just clumsy and a bit like, ooh, or, all of that stuff on this album. And, not deep, but not problematic. I just want to make sure that getting the framing
Yeah,
of this right.
so maybe problematic is wrong, and you're right to bring up Across the Sea, because that is, and again, not the right person to be talking about this, but again, has problematic lyrics. Um, uh, uh, I almost want to say, you put it down to context, time, and who Rivers is, and stuff like that, and have a bit more nuance when you're discussing the song like that. But I get why people would dislike greatly the lyrical content of that song, banger though it is. I don't think anything reaches those heights, but they just reach very cringeworthy. You're a 50-year-old man. Please stop this heights. I never want to hear Rivers Cuomo ever again saying, "Please, daddy, please, daddy." Do you know that kind of level of things? I don't know. I love this band, and I really want them to go away, take 3 or 4 years, and come back with a classic album I know they have in them. Because OK Computer was great. It was a great album, and they didn't do that. If they just took a little bit of time, revamped the Weezer format, still come in with those great choruses, and just took some time not to phone every aspect of it in, I'm 99% sure you could get an album close to being as good as Pinkerton or the Blue Album, because I still think they've got it in them, and I think that's the thing I find most frustrating about them. I don't feel that, and I feel the same way. Sorry, with Green Day, because you don't lose being able to write American Idiot. You might not have any ideas at the moment, but you don't lose that to write a album like Father of All. And there are so many bands where I can't feel disappointed because I feel like maybe they only had one of those albums, and the Weezer aren't one of those bands, and I think that's the biggest disappointment for me.
It's kind of almost that if you don't have anything to say, don't say anything at all kind of moment, isn't it?
Maybe I'm just numb to all of this. I've said it before. I was raised on U2, so that let that speak for itself. But hey, we're not talking about U2. We're not talking about Pinkerton. We're talking about Van Weezer, and yeah, I fucking love Weezer, man. In my rose tinted eyes, and I fully accept that it is rose tinted eyes. This is your fanboying last week. This is my fanboying this week. They have released 2 really good albums this year, and that's why, despite everything, I will be first in the queue to listen to any of their new releases, no doubt.
Be right there with you. You know I would.
Yeah,
But it's just,
yeah.
well, this wasn't it. This wasn't it for me.
Absolutely.
Anyway.
So, why don't we look ahead to next week? Let's put this behind us. And again, I should have checked in on this before we went live. But have we got anything on the docket for next week?
I've been thinking, we've been picking all the albums, so it's time we let Brad pick one. And he asked me immediately what's coming out this week, so I sent him a couple of choices. So I don't know if he had a time to listen to them ahead of time or pick them, but
I listened to parts of one of them that you mentioned, and that was the one that I was possibly most interested in. So I'm going to go with the other one.
the St. Vincent record.
St. Vincent, yeah.
Oh,
I think
of
St.
course.
Vincent's a good choice.
Yeah.
There'll be a lot to say about that album, thematically, musically, etc. Sons of Kemet, as good as they are, and I highly recommend anyone watching to go check out Sons of Kemet. Their 2018 album, Your Queen is a Reptile, is absolutely phenomenal.
Well, I've kind of mentioned Bitches Brew already, and there are definitely some parallels to be drawn between the two of those. But
yeah.
I think, much as I would get off on that, we should probably do some Vincent.
We could do the jazz album if you want, but I will say it is instrumental only, so there won't be too much to discuss vocally or lyrically, which might make it a little bit tough. But yeah, I think St. Vincent's a pretty good choice. It's a big album coming out. There'll be a lot of hype about this one.
I know St. Vincent solely as a Fortnite streamer.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, no, she's big in the Fortnite community, and the website that I referenced last week actually had her on guesting on one of their shows once. Have heard a lot of good things about St. Vincent's music, and I think that would be something. And again, I've seen a lot of people talking about that album, so would be interested in delving into that.
I think you might have seen one thing she's done. Annie Clark did a song with the remaining living members of Nirvana for their induction for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I
That's
think
right.
she did Lithium.
Yeah.
So you might have seen her do that. Good artist. That would be a fun discussion, I think.
Fantastic. Well, there we go. We're listening to some St. Vincent for a week. Guys, tell you what, we got to shake this one off, but I think we're about at wrap-up time here. If you are with us in Twitch chat, hang around after we have closed everything down. We're going to try something a little bit different out here tonight. But if you have missed any of this discussion or want to hear it again, we will have a recorded version of this going up on our YouTube channel on Sunday. If you are watching that recorded version, then we'll be going live again next Friday at 8 p.m. GMT with another album discussion. Shout out again to Millie Draws a Lot on Instagram. That's spelt with a Y for all of our wonderful graphics. If you want more Weezer, head over to Weezer.com and check out Mr. Rivers' Neighborhood. And if you want more Ballpark music, then follow us on Twitch. Subscribe to us and hit the bell on YouTube and check out our link tree. That's /Ballpark Music UK, where you can find all of our socials. Cam, I know you didn't necessarily enjoy it tonight, but I feel like the better question I should be asking here, are we still friends?
Yeah, we're still friends. I'll never get tired of making you do this. So, it's all good.
Brad, thanks again. You enjoy it?
Yeah, man, it's good to have an album we didn't all unilaterally love the shit out of. So,
I don't know, I've been happy to do another week of Fortitude.
Well, it won't surprise any of you to know that I have had a lot of fun tonight. We will see you all next time. Stay safe.